Good morning. So, let's get into web-based development and what my favorite browser is and some of the reason why it is my favorite browser. Now, in my opinion, like when you do web-based development, at least at the professional level, you will absolutely have to use several different browsers because depending on compatibility and like compliance with different rules and all the restrictions and like the differences between them, and then they are getting smaller. They're absolutely getting smaller. You're not in a situation like you used to be a few years ago where the differences are really that massive that you have to almost write different code for certain things you want to do. So Safari, Chrome, Firefox and Edge are pretty similar these days. There's only really, in my opinion, bugs that may occur on the different platforms that you have to account for, but you still have to test for it. So my personal setup is that I use a MacBook Pro with basically Safari, Mozilla and Chrome installed, and then I use VirtualBox in order to do my IE testing or Edge testing. And Microsoft actually provides, graciously enough, a virtual machine image that you can run on your MacBook so that you can test in that browser too, free of charge. So, what is my personal preference? It's Chrome, believe it or not, and every single programmer I know that is doing any type of serious front-end work uses Chrome. And if you're not using Chrome, you are missing out. It's very likely that you're missing out, because Google is the heavyweight champion of the world when it comes to web-based programming. And it's probably just a coincidence that Google thinks that apps are going to die out and that the web is going to win, and it's also probably just a coincidence that they want to promote any technology such as server or service workers and so forth that makes a web application feel and look and feel the same way as a mobile app or a native app. Because remember, the entire foundation for their company is a web browser. So there's a lot. Google invests heavily in the web. They are very invested in the web. That's the seat of their entire power, and ergo it makes to me a lot of sense that such a company would do everything that they can to secure their power position when it comes to web-based discussions in not just the open source community, but just the IT world. And they do an incredible job. So the political stuff aside, if I'm gonna give you this message straight out. If you want to be a professional web developer, use Chrome. Don't even think about it. The only time I use Safari is to debug for Safari, like iOS applications, or rather not iOS applications, but debug issues that Safari has on mobile devices, for example. Then you pretty much need to use that. Chrome very recently added that same support for debugging Android applications to their platform, so you can do the same thing. You can hook up your phone and then use your browser to do element inspection and all that good stuff. So, and to me, using Mozilla for web-based, I mean, you can do it, but I wouldn't. Like, to me, it's Mozilla, considering that they are an idealistic organization, not backed by two companies that literally have more money than God. I think they're doing very well, and there are things that they are doing that the big players are not. But unfortunately, like I've been using all of these browsers for many years, and Chrome it's so great. It is it's very, very nice. And one of the things that I think, apart from being able to do all the boilerplate stuff, which you can expect elements, put breakpoints, and like do live updates. And I'm not gonna go in and like list every single thing that's good about the browser, but I can tell you from experience that if you're new to web development, most developers that I've worked with uses Chrome for front-end work, almost all exclusively. So if you're in that position where you're asking yourself, well, which one do I work in, pick Chrome. You don't have to use it for, like, maybe you're a Safari person or a Firefox person for your own web surfing, and that's okay. But when it comes to doing professional work, this is the tool for you. And one of my two, like, the more advanced features that Chrome offers are things like, you know, browser optimization profiling, browser rendering statistic and rendering assistant tools, animation tools. Like, there's all these really high level or advanced features that are there on top of everything that it's very, very well thought out and very, very well designed. And personally, like I wouldn't even, at this point, I don't even think that somebody could convince me that there is another browser out there that is going to give me all of these things and like something else on top of it. Like, you can debug Node.js applications in Chrome now, and you have a massive development speed in comparison to most of the other browsers in terms of, you know, getting new features and so forth. So that's basically the message that I'm trying to give you. It's not in any way, like, it is a biased opinion. I'm not trying to be diplomatic and say, oh, you can use it whichever you want. Like, I'm not saying that. I'm literally telling you to use Chrome. Like, that's my message. And like, yeah, if you haven't figured that out by now, I'm not in any way endorsed by Google, or I'm not getting paid for anything like that. I can just tell you that I've been doing professional web work for a few years now, more than a few years, and I've used all the browsers and been involved in several projects, and Chrome is by far the best one out there, in my opinion. And yes, and it is just an opinion. If you think if you think differently, that's absolutely fine. But that's my tip to those of you who are wondering if you're getting into web development. Which browser do you use for your daily work? Use Chrome, and let that be the end of it. And for those of you who are thinking about like using Edge and so forth, like, you will hear, I just want to touch on this, you will hear a lot of the web community bash talk Microsoft for their crappy browser. This is, just to clarify, this is aimed towards the IE series, like Internet Explorer, specifically from Internet Explorer 6 up to fairly recently. So Microsoft has had a really bad streak for browser support. They're not that, in comparison, like, they haven't had that success that you see with Chrome, for example. So I want to be very clear and say that although you're gonna hear a lot of banter talk about Microsoft's browsers, it's actually pretty good today. Like, the browser, like Edge and so forth, they're pretty cutting edge. In some cases, they're actually more advanced in terms of features, specifically CSS adoption of CSS features and implementation of that, than even Chrome. Like, so it's perfectly fine. If you're a Microsoft person or a Windows person, using Edge is perfectly fine. It's going to get you there. I still say that Chrome is the best one, but don't let that like scare you away from using Edge if you really want to. So yeah, that's my little rant about my preference in browsers.